This year's conference finals are without some of the biggest names in the game, but is this a sign of the times? I'm Madelyn Burke for the Game Day here with Marcus Mosher. And Marcus, the changing of the guard, it usually happens quite subtly, right? Players like
Mhm.
Jordan and Kobe and Iverson fade out and a new generation of LeBron and KD and Steph fade in. But as we look at the younger talent emerging in this postseason, are we watching the next wave of stars make their ascension?
I mean, I think so. What we have in the conference finals right now with Trae Young and Devin Booker and Deandre Ayton, these are guys that, maybe just a year ago we were thinking of maybe borderline stars who are turning into superstars before our very eyes. I think it's fantastic for the NBA. It's great to see these guys take a next step. And I couldn't be more excited about the future of the league. It's going to be absolutely incredible, the amount of talent that we have, amount of young talent that we have in the league.
Yeah, and it's easy to kind of have a star on the rise in a market like LA or New York, right? But when you're in a smaller market, a Dallas or a Atlanta or Phoenix, it's not as easy. It takes a lot more talent to kind of put that name on the map. Is this a trend, some of these smaller market guys kind of rising up and staying in this? Or do you think that some of these guys are going to be making their way to the big shiny states and cities?
Well, Maddie, it's always been this way, right? These guys get drafted by these small markets, and then eventually they want to outgrow these markets, and they go to Los Angeles or Chicago or New York. Listen, we'll use Anthony Davis as an example, right? He was with the Pelicans for how many years, and then he eventually wants to go to LA to become a super duper star. But as of right now, I think we just need to enjoy these guys, right? Let's enjoy that Trae Young is in Atlanta. Let's enjoy that Luka is in Dallas, because I do think eventually you will see these guys shift teams, because that's just the nature of the NBA. And with the way that the star moves, I do think we'll eventually see these guys change teams.
Well, and you mentioned Trae Young in Atlanta. I think of all these stars on the rise, he's perhaps the most valuable to his organization because Atlanta hasn't had a star like this, a player like this, since Dominique Wilkins, really.
Hmm.
And a guy like this that, number one, is becoming almost like a universal villain in this league, a little Steph-like with how he's playing against these opponents, but also is drawing attention for the local Atlanta fans and bringing them to the game for more than just the in-arena barber shop and the great DJ, right?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think villain is a little too much for Trae Young. I think heel might be the better
Okay,
word, right? Because I
I'll
don't think
allow it.
he's a bad guy, but I think he likes to play the role of the bad guy a little bit. But you're absolutely right. Like what Trae Young has done for the city of Atlanta, kind of getting everybody excited about Atlanta sports again is it's incredible. And a year ago, we're talking about how bad that trade was for the Hawks, trading away Luka Doncic. And now I think you can make the argument that both teams won, and maybe even the Hawks won when you consider they're in the Eastern Conference Finals and Luka still never won a playoff series.
There you go. There you go. I mean, I think that it's definitely kind of working out for the best. And these two guys will always be tied
Yeah.
to one another throughout their career. But it's hard to say, okay, who's the next LeBron? Who's the next Kobe? Who's the next Jordan? Because nobody's going to be that guy again. But who do you see being the next player in that stature, or a player that could rise to that stature in this game?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm going to bring up DeAndre Ayton because what I saw from him so far in the playoffs, especially the Western Conference Finals, is just unbelievable. Now, he's not going to be a Tim Duncan or Kevin Garnett, but could he be the next, let's say, David Robinson? I could certainly see that because I don't think we've seen a player like him in the NBA in a long time. I think he's the next multi-time All-Star, somebody who is on the first and second team at center or power forward every single year. I just absolutely love what we've seen from Ayton and how he's playing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And a former number one overall pick, couple of years into his NBA career, is really starting to find his footing and find his rhythm and find his way on this team. I'm also going to point to one of his teammates, Devin Booker. I
Mm.
mean, the way that this man is playing in the postseason with such poise, such confidence, such dominance in moments. It's like he's an old basketball soul, right? And I love the narrative and the exchange that he references that he and Kobe had about how to be great. And that feels a little bit cosmic, right? How
Hmm.
he's playing, how he's approaching this game with the discipline and the execution. Because it takes one thing to prepare and to be able to show up and to know how to do it, but be able to do it on that stage at that young age in this point in your career with a team that just 2 years ago, this was a 19-win Suns team, and now they're in the Western Conference Finals, a win away from the NBA Finals. That's a lot of growth for this team to go through.
Yeah, and I thought even at some points during this season that Devin Booker was always going to be these good stats, bad team kind of player, right? That just scores a lot of points, but the Suns are never competitive. That hasn't been the case at all, obviously, as they had the number two, the best record in the Western Conference this year. Booker's playing winning basketball. He's been fantastic throughout the playoffs. It is a little unfortunate that he had the nose injury because I think his play has dipped a little bit since having to wear the mask, but you're absolutely right. Devin Booker is an old soul, and I love watching him play.
Yeah, and the nose injury in a Suns uniform, a nice little hat tip to Steve Nash with that one there.
Yes.
To be a great Suns player, you almost have to break your nose in a playoff game, right?
Absolutely.
I think it's just math. I think that's just how it goes. All right, well, we got a lot of stars on the rise. We got a lot of basketball left to watch as the NBA playoffs continue, and continue to check in with us on thegameday.com for all the latest.